Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, Evangelist, I'm back on Card Fight Vanguard deck profiles. Don't have to comment, subscribe, and let's go and start, shall we? This time we're covering Brandt Arkhite deck profile. So for set 8, we have those we had actually a total of 10 new decks, which I didn't realize till after I started recording all the deck profiles, and that's kind of why I'm choosing to do 5 each week. But yeah, so we got 10 decks in total, 5 supporting ones, or 5 returning ones, and then 5 new ones. And Arkwright's one of those new ones for Brandt, where it kind of takes on Ava's research theme, where it has the research orders, but it takes a completely different stamp on them. And all around, in my opinion, this deck is very fun to play. It's just very annoying to record with, because doing stupid loops with the deck takes fucking forever to do, and I swear to God, it lags the hell out of my camera. But it's a fun deck to play, so let's go ahead and get this started, shall we? And you can see what I mean by it. In fact, I think I've kept this deck exactly the same that it was when I did the when I did the fight recording, so we'll see. First up, we have our starter in a moment of rest, Arkwright. Grade 0 boost 5k shield, 6k base, all on road upon. If you win second, you get to draw a card. Standard star nuts, basically that means that when you go second, you get to draw a card if you rode upon it. So all around, that's nice. It's just nothing too special about it. It's just a free draw. You do want this for your ride deck because just like the Ava ride line, it does require the specific grade 0 to ride upon for the grade 1 to activate its ability, but it's still a good grade 0 nonetheless. And in my opinion, I really do like its art. I like its baggy style clothes here, and I like her blue hair, so why not make her the start of the deck, right? Then we have our trigger lineup. We have 1 over trigger and Star Dragon, Deity of Infinitude, Elder Breath, aka thing everyone knows if they've ever played against Brandt, because it probably caused them PTSD thanks to a very certain meteor spamming girl. Ahem, we're looking at you, Gravidia. Anyways, Grid 0 boost 50k shield, 5k power, over trigger, you minimum 1 over trigger, and your deck. Reverse trigger, make a card, draw a card, choose one, mix up some for the turn. And if you fail during your draft check, activate its additional effect, which is double the power and critical of all former units until the end of your turn. Your former units, of course. And increases power and double at the time of activated. So, even if you sack a trigger after this one is sacked, you don't double that one, you just double this one's. So that's good, because that means the second you draft check, the summon on your board has 2 million, and everything on your board, unless their critical got lowered, has at least a base critical of 2. So yeah, Elder Breath is fun because essentially the turn you draft check this, your opponent is dead unless they have at least 2 PGs at the ready, and if they don't, well then they're kind of fucked. I mean, you can still win the game you can still lose the game that you sack this offensively, because I have beaten some players sometimes when they sack this offensively, but it's extremely hard to do so because again, the defensive deficit you're put into is immense because you're dropping at least 2 PGs to live the turn, or at least 1. So yeah, Elder Breath, fun, and definitely hell-threatening, and in this deck where numbers are already as big as they are, yeah, Elder Breath kind of adds on to, even the extra critical doesn't really make it as bad. I mean, the extra critical definitely helps, but the power itself just, whew, doubling those numbers is scary. Then we have our normal triggers. First up, we have a total of 7 crits, 3 of them being Star Aggression, Dragon of Vanilla, which just looks cool in my opinion. I'm so glad I get to use this card now. Grade 0 boost 15k shield, 5k power. Then we have the effect crit in Patrol Robocop and Patrol Robo Decker Cop, aka Robocop. Grade 0 boost 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rift, and about a boost to put it to soul, choosing up to 2k for the turn. This is the one deck I constantly remember to use that skill in, because this is the deck that soul matters the most into me. So, being able to go to soul and add 2k doesn't really make that much of a difference, but just being able to go to soul in general is amazing. And yeah, having the extra crits for pressure on Vanguard is great, so we have a total of 7 crits. And then we have 4 draws in Amarate Connector, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k power, draw King's Guard Circle, opponent's Vanguard to grade 3 gifts plus 5k shield. So, 10k shield draw trigger that ends up increasing your hand is always nice. We don't run fronts because you're about to see we have the heal and Alter Right Spear Dragon, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. And the reason why we don't run fronts is because, this deck already, like I said before, this deck hits numbers already really well. I mean, the front would basically help drop 2 cards at the same time, but this deck can afford to play the long game and definitely will win the hand game in that regard, at least the way I play it definitely would. So, you don't need fronts for this deck. I do prefer to have the extra crits for pressure and make other rear guards hit for more pressure, and the draw trigger definitely helps out increase the hand. But if you want to run fronts, then I say just rainbow it and then just put the fronts at 3 copies, but I do prefer having the 7 crits and 4 draws. And if you're wondering why we don't run the effect heals, it's because I just don't like the effect heals. They are too situational in my opinion. One of them only works if your opponent's attacking you with the same unit twice, or more, and the other one only works if your opponent has an extra critical through, I think, anything that isn't a drive check. So it's in my opinion, I don't like them, especially because they have 5k shield less, meaning that if those abilities don't go off, that means they're just worse than the normal heals, and certain attacks will still go through regardless. So yeah, I'd rather have the normal heals, but if you want to run the effect heals, go ahead, but I just would rather have these out of 4 of. Then we have our grade 1s. First up, we have 4 copies of the most important card in this deck. There is no argument to this, and that is Torrent Energy Research. Your main research, though there is a second one in this deck just in case. Grade 1 set order. After set order is played, put it to your order zone. Auto is put into your order zone. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 2 monster cards from among them. Put one into your hand and put 1 card into your drop zone and shuffle the deck. Okay, so first up, if you pick 2, you have to put the first one into, sorry, if you only pick 1, you have to put the one you put into your hand because of how it's worded. But, yeah, so, just so for those of you that know, for the Japanese and English description, I believe the Japanese version is called Kaiju, the English version is called Monsters. So, yeah, monsters and mutants in English are more or less the same, so there are certain cards that work for it, there are certain cards that won't, and then for kaijus, they're all called kaijus anyways in the Japanese, so just take that as you will. But yeah, so free essentially deck thinning, and this deck thins a fucking lot by first grade 3 turns, so hell yeah, and then act order zone, rest this card, choose up to 1 monster card from your drop zone, put it to your order zone. So sadly, they don't count as orders when they're put into order zone, but on the bright side, they at least increase your order zone amount, and that definitely benefits you for the sake of your, main grade 3 skill, who definitely abuses that skill. And again, with all the deck thinning you do, this deck has just... this deck is just stupid when it comes to what it does, because it does what it does really well. So, for Torrent Energy Research, half the time I see 3 triggers off this as PGs, and the other half the time... Actually, no, and even then I still see like exactly 2 monsters. So, yeah, just free deck thinning and sets you up so well, and it does it for all amazing cost, just 4 of. There's no reason not to have this as a 4 of in your monster main deck. Then we have 4 copies of Detonation Mutant, or as the errata will soon have it, Detonation Monster. Yes, so this does work with the order. Bulbamine. Grade 1 boost by Shode base, auto rear at the end of the battle. Boosted anything. If your order zone has a set order, put it to soul countercharge 1. Okay, this card's amazing for the deck. 1, because again, remember, the errata makes it a monster, so it can be searched with this and put into your order zone by this. But also, he can go to soul, and again, I say this deck has a soul problem to some extent, and he countercharges, which if the game goes far enough and you just spam counterblast 24/7, you will eventually run into a counterblast problem. So, the fact that he can not only fix every one of your resources, but then also act as fodder for one of your resources is just good. And this card, I think we can all agree that has been a really good card for Brandt in general. For like, whenever a Brandt deck starting out, you probably want to run Bulbamine at least a 1 to 3 of, because countercharge and soul charge benefit. But in this deck, fucking amazing. You can call it, it gets benefits from the main grade 3, it can be thinned out via this card skill, it gets you countercharge and soul charge. 4 of. I don't need to explain to you why this is good. It's an amazing grade 1 for this deck. You run it as a 4 of, no questions asked. Then we have 4 copies of Radio Wave Monster Rebros, aka my favorite grade 1 in this deck. Grade 1 boost by Shode base, auto is placed on rear guard if you have a Glitter Vanguard with Ava in its card name, or a Vanguard with Arkhite in its card name, Soul Blast on Vanguard, Soul Blast 2 to draw a card. Okay, so this works for both Ava and, Ava and Arkwright. The second you hit grade 2, essentially, or technically grade 1 if you happen to have 2 cards in soul at that point, but I question how you would do that, unless you just played a Meteor. But yeah, getting a free draw all around is really helpful. Definitely, in my opinion, works better for this deck, because this deck, I don't know, feels like it could afford to manage that soul a little bit better. And then continues to regard during turn, if your order zone has 3 or more research cards, it gets +5. So I do like how this card was meant to be a generic split between the two, where it definitely has more, I guess, help towards what's the deck called? Even though I'm deck profiling it, Arkwright, because it ends up getting you that draw, and it has a monster in its name, so it works better with the deck theme all around. But it does still work for Ava because it still can draw for her, and not to mention the fact it still benefits both sides because they both want to have 3 or more cards in research, or 3 or more research cards in order zone. So the fact that they can get +5 regardless all around is still really nice. So I like this card. It's a very good generic split. In my opinion, I just like running it more at Arkwright, but it can work for both. It's still good though. It's a 13k base during your turn if you have the 3 or more research, and considering the fact you get 2 of them for free, you just need to draw another one. So yeah, 4 of Rebros. It's just an amazing grade 1 to have. Sets up for the late game with like the early game draw skills, and the 5k definitely helps out as the game progresses. So 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of our PG and Planet Wall Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 0 Shosis K base. Continuous Sentinel, you may have up to 4 Sentinels in deck, and all was put on guard circle. Choose one of your units, it cannot be hinted out of battle, and if your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand and discard it. Standard PG, not specified. Basically, that means if this and only one of the cards in your hand, you place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard a card, which is great, because that essentially means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game, and this will still come back and defend you in the late game. And you know what the best part about this deck is? Half the time, I don't draw all my PGs, unlike all my other decks. I draw 1 or 2 at most, and the best part about this is they come in during the late game, after I've committed most of my hand to the aggressive board rush. So you know, it's kind of perfectly timed with how this deck works for me. All around, this PG is amazing. I love having it. You could run Violate Dragon instead of this if you want to, because they have the exact same skill. I just prefer Planet Wall because this deck came out after Planet Wall came out, and I already have Violate in like 4 other Brandt decks, so I might as well, you know, have a different PG. But then also the fact that I just love Planet Wall more, like in terms of both naming and art, I just love Planet Wall more. So yeah, 4 of Planet Wall, just a good PG. Again, you can run Violate, but being able just to block the attack without having to discard a card if you have only one other hand card is great. So 4 of. Then we have our last grade 1 of the deck, and that's the grade 1 of the Ride deck, and that is Searching for Monster Souls Arkhite. Very interesting how her background depicts one of the best cards in this deck, in my opinion. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, aka base. Auto when she's placed by riding from a moment of rest Arkhite, aka you search your deck for up to 1 research card, and you may add it to your hand after revealing it to your opponent. So you have 2 options, or technically you have a total of 4. You have the Ava one, which you can't use because you have to be on an Ava. There's Torrential Research, where obviously that's the one you pick. Then there's the original one, Experimental Success, and then there's the new one that I believe also has to be on an Ava, so if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But yeah, so all around pretty great. Again, I do love how the fact that the Ava ride line and the Arkhite ride line are literally the exact same, because their skills are just copied and pasted of each other, so technically speaking, you could just run one of them and then just have the main grade 3 be absolutely different, because neither of them require the card in Soul. So I mean, and technically in Arkwright it works better for this one to be in Soul because has the monster name, so worst case scenario, if you have to call this, you can. But yeah, one of Arkwright in the Ride deck, it's just a good card to have. Obviously it doesn't have a rear guard skill, so you don't want to run in the main deck, but being able to search a research for free, especially when it's this one just by riding, is amazing, because that means, let's just say you went second, you ride on top of this, you get that draw from going second, then you search your order, or technically you search your order, then you do your draw, and then you play your, actually no, you do want to do the draw first because you want to try to draw the other order. Then you play the order and use the order skill to send 2 cards from one into your drop, one into one into your order zone, and then you use that one skill to put it back into your order zone. So that's what, 4 cards out of deck in one go. All around, and then you forgot your draw for turn, so 5. All around, Arkwright's pretty good. I love her Ride deck skill, it's just nice, so 1 of in the Ride deck. Then we have our grade 2s. First up, we have 3 copies of the other research, because I do run a total of 7 researches just to try to make sure I hit 3 consistently, and that's Experiment Successful. Grade 2, set order after set order, auto after set order is played to go into the order zone. Auto, when it's put into your order zone, draw a card, discard 1, and then if your order zone has 3 or more research cards, soul boss 1, choose an opponent's rear guard and bind it. So that's great. I mean, sometimes soul can definitely be a problem, so sometimes it's not really the best skill, but being able to bind an opponent's rear guard if I have the soul for it is amazing. And the draw discard skill definitely helps for the searching aspect of this deck, and you'll see what I mean by that in a second. But I don't really like to search for this one. Typically what I do for both the Ride deck grade 1 and 2, I just search for this one, and then hopefully I just try to mulligan for either another copy of this one, or just pray that I draw into another copy of this one, so I can make sure that when I hit grade 3, I can get my 3rd research in there, and I can start playing the game. Because if you don't start playing the game on first grade 3 turn, it's not impossible to win, but it's definitely a lot harder to win in my opinion, so you want to try to always have an order in your opening hand. So, the Experiment Successful definitely helps, I guess, deck thin for orders with the combo that we're about to go over. I'm pretty sure if I memorize the card order correctly, and not to mention the fact in the late game it can help get rid of pesky rear guards via binding, if you have the soul for it, that is. But then again, it is also a tech option, so you could choose not to run it if you have good luck within, seeing the other researches, especially because of the card you just saw. But I don't have good luck in this deck, so I like to have, a total of 7 orders just to make sure I have a better chance of seeing them. Speaking of the combo, here he is, Aiding Monster Tech-Tan, Great 2 SF, 5k shield, 10k base, auto when you discard it from your hand during your turn by any means, whether it's by Ride deck, ability, or something else. Look at the top 5, choose up to 1 set order from one number, reveal it, put it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. Okay, essentially what you do is this. You play this into your order zone, you ditch this, you draw a card, then you ditch this, and then you look at top 5 for another set order. There's nothing more to that. So, considering the fact and this by the way is going to search you another research card, so being able to search 2 free researches is great, because then that means you only need 1 more to get your deck full on, and you only have 5 left, so that's pretty good, especially because I think at that point you'd be at 40 deck cards, so you have a 1 in 8 chance of seeing a research card, and this kind of just increased it, so 4 of Tech-Tan, really great discard skill. I like him. I hate him in every other deck just because he just feels useless afterwards, but in this deck, he actually has a purpose, considering half the time when I discard him, I can just put him right back to order zone for this thing, and considering what the main grade 3 does, it would actually benefit him to be in the drop zone and have at least 1 copy in hand. So 4 of Tech-Tan, because unlike in every other deck, after he serves his purpose, he actually has 1 more main purpose, and that is to be an actual swinger. So 4 of Tech-Tan. It's an amazing grade 2, searches orders, and actually does something for the deck just because his name is a monster. Hell yeah. Then we have our grade 2 of the Ride deck, who I already kind of spoiled the skill of, and that is Guardian of the Slumbering Arkwright. See, if they just didn't put a comma there, that actually sounds like an actual name, like Guardian of the Slumbering Arkwright, like Arkwright's an actual item. Anyways, great 25k shield, 10k base. Auto was placed by writing from searching for a monster of souls Arkwright. Search up to one research card, reveal it, put it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. I like how half the ride line is useful towards the order because half the ride line actually has monster in the card name and the other half doesn't, which is weird because the odd ones have monster in the card name, but because both the grade 1 and the grade 3 have, and the grade 2 and grade 0 don't. But either way, getting a free research to hand again is amazing. It literally does it for no cost whatsoever. You just have to write from the specific grade 1. So I like it for that reason alone. I wish it had a little less generic skill, especially because, again, its skill is just copied and pasted straight from Ava, just change the wording a little bit to focus on the grade 1 itself. But hey, it's still good nonetheless, so might as well make it the ride deck card, so one of in the ride deck. Then we have our grade 3s. First up, my favorite card in this deck, or argue like tied for favorite between this and this, and it's Volcanic Monster Go Gataraya. I definitely said that wrong, but I like how there's like a small hurricane in the background with him being just a volcano monster. Anyways, grade 3 generic persona, 13k base. Auto is placed on your rear guard from anywhere, so by anything, by the way, too. So it can be by effects, normal, from deck, order zone, damage, drop zone, etc., or just straight up from hand. By counterblasting 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards with grade equal to or less than the number of research cards in your order zone, so at the very least 2, and retire it. So that's great, so automatically you can kill almost any rear guard, with the exception being grade 3s or graders, and most of the time you'll be able to hit that grade 3, so that's great. And then auto rear, when this unit attacks into anything, if your order zone has 3 or more research cards, he gets plus 5k power. So again, more benefits to being able to hit 3 research cards immediately, but again, if you can't, at least you can kill a rear guard that's grade 2 or less, which is most rear guards. And, if you can hit that 3 research, he's an 18k swing, and he's definitely going to be more dangerous as the game goes on, thanks to what the main grade 3 does. But all around, amazing grade 3, adds at least a 10k drop to pretty much any swing he goes into, and murders a rear guard just by being placed, and can do it during both main phase and battle phase, and during your opponent's turn too, if you manage to call him during your opponent's turn. So, 4 of Gakatera. Actually, now that I think about it, does Stargate have a way to call during your opponent's turn? Because if they do, this thing's going to end up on a ban list. Because it's be pseudo-denial Griffin. We'll figure that out. 4 of Gokatera right now. He's just an amazing grade 3, and I like him. He's literally my favorite card in this deck again, except for maybe Rebros. Then we have our last card in the deck, and that's our main grade 3. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the red deck of Monster Creator Arkwright. And I really love this background card. I have no idea what the hell this is, if it's like supposed to be some monster we didn't get yet, but I think of it just like a Leviathan type of beast that will somehow be like this really cool grade 2 triple rare the next time we get Arkwright support. But we'll figure that out. But either way, her long-ass skill, even though it's only 2 skills, is she's a grade 3 200%, 13k base. Auto Vanguard, when your rear guard with monster and its card name is placed from anywhere, so it can be by effect or not by effect, and it can be placed from deck, drop zone, damage zone, etc., or hand. Put a card with the same card name as that unit from your order zone to the bottom, and that unit gets plus 10k for the turn. So that means, say for example, you have a Boba Mine in there, because maybe you use this to put a Boba Mine from your drop zone into the order zone, and you call it a Boba Mine. You can put that Boba Mine in your order zone to bottom and give this Boba Mine plus 10. Yep, so that means everything can pretty much hit unless a trigger gets shut down, and even then triggers will sometimes not be able to shut down your swings. And that works during both players' turns. Hell yeah. And then her second skill, the good one, is Auto Van. When this unit attacks, if your order zone has any research cards at all, can counterblast 1 and perform all the following. If you have 3 or more order zone... So I find this order weird, considering this one goes first, and then it's the other one, but whatever. If your order zone has 3 or more research cards, choose up to 1 of your rear guards with monster on their card name, put it to your order zone. Okay, so you don't have to if you don't want to, but the fact you can kind of means that you can increase your chance of getting plus 10, which is great. And then the other one, look at top 7, choose up to 1 unit card with monster and its card name from among them, call it to your rear guard and shuffle your deck. Okay, here's my thing. The way that's worded, that's smart, because basically that means is you have the chance to increase the unit you called being able to hit, because the unit you called doesn't get power unless you put something to bottom for it. So being able to increase that chance is great. I don't know, find it weird that like this one requires it and this one doesn't. But again, I understand the logic because, puts it to order zone, opens up circles for multi-attack, etc. But all around, I like this skill a lot. Being able to multi-attack just by being on, especially because for this skill, you don't have to have 3 or more research. You just have to have 1 research. So that's great. So I like the fact that just by going first or second, doesn't really matter, or just by playing the game, you can get 4 attacks, which is great. And if you end up having the 3 research cards, you get to consistently, from your first grade 3 turn, be able to add 10k to everything you call, essentially, rush your opponent down, and do deadly numbers. I remember that game that I played for the first time with this deck where I got a full board out, and I got really lucky, and I got 3 torrential tributes, or not torrential tributes, torrential energy research out, all by my first grade 3 turn, and I had like 2 copies of this in my order zone, 2 copies of this boy in my order zone, 1 copy of this, and I think 1 copy of this, and then I just called down a full board of all those. This column had like one column had this thing and a bubble mine in it. The other column had this thing and the Revros in it, and then the other column had just the Vanguard and the other bubble mine in it. And I swung for 46 on 2 different columns, I think it was, and then I like sacked the over, and it was game from there. So yeah, all around, Arkwright's pretty great. Being able to just do multi-attack, add numbers, and consistently put stuff in order zone. Essentially, it's a mental headache for your opponent sitting around as you solitaire the fuck out of your deck, but you do so much deck thinning that the chance of you seeing a triggers is amazing, and the chance of you hitting very high numbers is great for all little cost. That's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, again, this is one of my favorite decks, and then probably one of my favorite decks in terms of gameplay-wise from set 8 to be released, just because, again, you get to do multi-attack so easily, you get to add numbers so easily, and you just get to pull off so much consistency so easily, and in my opinion, one of my most hated cards has turned into one of my most liked cards because of this deck giving him purpose after his skill is used. All around, I like this deck a lot, it's amazing, and I definitely cannot wait to continue to use it in the future. And I can't wait to see what they do with it, considering both Ava and her share research cards, so whenever you give one of them one, unless it's name restricted to who it goes to, it can be used for both, so we'll see where Bushy takes this one. So I'm going to end it here, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.